This is 18:22 hours GMT, London, 19th of July 2020. This is a test edition and a short one with the headlines. One is that Robert Jenkins, the UK central government Minister for Housing and Local Government, who heads the department that is responsible for guiding local councils and local areas on how to deal with and deliver the service for the prevention of the COVID 19 pandemic, has been reportedly caught in yet another abuse of his position over giving planning to a degenerating building outfit, this time in Kent, in an area called Sittingbourne in Kent, which is not all that far from Tower Hamlets in East London, where the biggest degeneration project fronted by the pornographic billionaire Dirty Desmond gave £12,000 to Jenrick or the Conservatives through him. And as a result of that donation, so called, it was a bribe, but it was described as a donation. The planning permission for the West Ferry Printworks degeneration program, which Dirty Desmond is set to benefit from to the tune of hundreds of millions, was granted in extra quick time in order to beat the deadline that had to be met in order to comply with the requirements of local planning outfit based in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets Council. The details of that sequence of corrupt events we shall be updating on in a later edition. Suffice to say that Jenrick is proving to be a disaster not only in that area but also in protecting people from being made homeless, because the complete ban on evictions that he actually paraded and claimed to have imposed in March 2020 has been exposed as having been dishonest, and it has been extended up to the third week of August. But again, it is considered to be yet another con trick by Jenrick. And so campaigners, as they are not enough campaigners, but there are campaigners in London area. They are rallying against the evictions being restored to the courts so that any number of people will be evicted without much procedural defense against the attack by eviction and possession applications. Jenrick's history on this one in the last 4 months is replete with contradictions, dishonest statements, and going back and forth. And we expect that he will continue to behave in that way because not only he is personally unreliable, lacks integrity, and lacks any understanding of the impact on lives of people affected by evictions and lack of their homes, but also he is a member of a cabinet that is fronted by Boris Johnson. Suffice to say that Boris Johnson is considered as the most irresponsible holder of the post of Prime Minister in a long time. And that will continue to be the case because he is not going to protect the people for whom he has a lifetime's record, a career full of records of expressing open, brazen, blatant contempt. And he has no respect for most people who are affected by the pandemic or poverty and related issues. As for the overrated Rishi the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is actually an agent of big business and hedge funders. And his various tricks and propaganda and coups in getting headlines, mainly in the Dirty Desmonds, formerly owned Daily Express Group newspapers, and the Boris Johnson, which is Boris Johnson Graph or the Boris Graph, Daily Telegraph, and the Daily Mail, which is the Brexiteering paper, and also the Rupert Murdoch controlled and Michael Gove linked Dirty Diggers, Daily Scum. These are all misleading people saying that they have been achieving a lot of protection for the people made vulnerable by the ease with which attacks on their housing rights can be mounted. So we have that, and we shall be updating on that in extensive detail, item by item. On the opposite side to Jenrick is the Labour Party MP for Bristol West, Thangam Debonair. Thangam Debonair is misleading people by making all kinds of tiny, stunty statements about evictions and things. But the package, the actual substance of our alternative to Jenrick does not match the needs of urgent opposition. Now, this week, in the last week, that is the week that has gone, or the weekend, probably weekend, I think, or the week, but we can check that and get the exact date in the next edition. The Newham and Leytonstone branch, which is an odd pairing because Leytonstone and Newham are not similar entities. Leytonstone is part of another borough, and Newham is a borough in its own wrongs. Now, the Newham and Leytonstone branch of the London Renters Union are boasting on the Facebook that they had a meeting, remote, of course, meeting with East Ham MP, one of the two sitting MPs in Newham, Stephen Timms. We have posted questions, about 6 questions we have posted in the last 24 hours on our Facebook and in our comment to them, asking them what was it that they asked him during the meeting, because they haven't actually posted a video of that meeting. If there is a video in existence, we'll be able to find it and later add that to our updated version. So Thangam Debonair and Stephen Timms are in the Labour Party, or the so-called opposition party in British House of Commons. But the evidence, the record of their behavior shows that they cannot match the urgent needs of the people, most of the people affected by the violation of all kinds of legal rights to housing and homes. So we shall update according to the itemized findings of fact on each aspect of the failures of the so-called opposition. And quite apart from the Newham and Leytonstone branch of the London Renters Union meeting Stephen Timms and congratulating him, it is not clear why they think that they should congratulate him or thank him for meeting them remotely. Because as a local MP for a widely recognized community full of so much deprivation and misrepresented by a Newham council which is corrupt, incompetent in the ordinary sense of the term, how is it that Stephen Timms should be given thanks for listening to people who are speaking about a matter that will affect so many thousands? And so therefore we shall be exploring why these campaigners are not going to actually successfully protect the rights of the people they claim they are speaking for. And we shall be asking for and arguing for a more rigorous and vigorous campaign against the violations of housing rights, both in Newham, in Leytonstone, in Hackney, in Tower Hamlets, in the rest of the what used to be called the inner cities meaning the city borough councils in London that have got significant deprivations and poverty, and they are being made much worse by the pandemic and the response to the pandemic by the councils and by Robert Jenrick, as I have said, and by, of course, Boris Johnson. And we move on to the role of Roxana Fias as the successor to Robin Wales as the mayor in Newham. This paper, Private Eye, this is the latest fortnightly edition dated Friday, the 17th of July to 30th of July 2020. Is priced £2, and it is not bought widely in Tower Hamlets or in Newham or in Hackney because I have surveyed the news agents outlets that actually stock this and sell this. It is very small number. So therefore, even if this Private Eye circulation is currently supposed to be 200,000, most of its readers are not residents or living in or present in Newham, Tower Hamlets, Hackney, Waltham Forest, Lewisham, Greenwich, Southwark, Lambeth, Camden, Hackney. What we have, therefore, is that despite the fact that Private Eye claims to be now the most widely read magazine, investigative journal, and all the rest of it, which compared to The Guardian and its role, it probably is that. But that is not enough, as I said. Thangam Debonair is the opposition shadow to Robert Jenrick, but that does not in itself constitute opposition, let alone delivering the matching voice for the people affected by Jenrick's failures in housing and in causing extra additional hardship and aggravating homelessness in the middle of an expanding or persistent pandemic that Jenrick's boss, Boris Johnson, is aiding and abetting in, allowing to persist. So we shall update factually, strictly factually, on all of this in the next edition or editions. And the Michael Gillard, who works for Private Eye anonymously, and he apparently is one of the prized, well-fated investigative journalists available or acting in Fleet Street or in British mainstream media at the present time. And his reputation has been promoted by himself, claiming to have unearthed the gangsters in Newham operating around the 2012 Olympics and the various negotiations that took place. And Gillard has been promoting the image of Roxana Fias in the context of allegedly the gangs backed Robin Wales regime, and she is the innocent person. Now, that is not true. Factually, it is absolutely absurd. If Robin Wales was bad, Roxana Fias, in terms of image manipulation, is worse because her image is protected by racists like Michael Gillard who are ignorant about the implication of when they say that Asian Muslim woman, this is absolutely racist and corrupt because they say that to put her aside and on a better standing in comparison with the rest of the ordinary Asians and the Muslims. And same accusation we can factually level at the Guardian promoter. The promoter, while Luther Roman was in post as mayor in Tower Hamlets, the Guardian's David, there was a man called Dave Hill. He promoted Luther Roman's regime, and he also promoted Roxana Fiaz in April 2018, just a few months before the 2018 election. So David Hill and other ignorant, white, self-designated liberals have been promoting these self-seeking ethnic tokens for positions that are actually not intended to challenge corruption, provide high standard, high quality delivery of service, let alone oppose racism or racists. We shall cover all of those factually, name, chapter, and verse. And we say that because most of the people in the current climate are widely admitted by all evidence to be the victims of the pandemic and its repercussions. Most of the people are Asians, Africans, and other people of non-European, non-white backgrounds. So why that is so important is simply because it affects lives. And we have undemocratic, unaccountable, intransparent, corrupt regimes in the most sensitive, most important areas like Tower Hamlets, Newham, Hackney, Waltham Forest, and other parts of what I call inner London, inner cities, boroughs. So we shall be up digging up the necessary evidence and updating on those. On to the collapse of the crane in Warsgrove and the death of 85-year-old, highly respected, highly regarded local woman called June Harvey. In the crane collapse on the 7th of July. As I have been saying, and as we have been broadcasting in the last 10 days, Tower Hamlets Council is guilty of negligence. And Tower Hamlets Council is guilty of negligence for the death of Miss Harvey and also for the deaths of the young mother in 2018 who was killed by a falling bricks in Badet Road while she was leaving her child at school and going to work. And also for the death of the 5-year-old child in Mile Park, which death was avoidable but was caused by the negligence of the Tower Hamlets Council, which is directly responsible for the safeguarding and safety of the people using that particular structure that killed the child. So we say that because the democracy supposed to be asserted by the elected councillors in place in Tower Hamlets Council in the context of these dangerous, deadly structure faults and mishaps and collapses, all these councillors are silent. Since the 7th of July, in fact, during the 7th of July, I have been talking to these people or trying to get their response or comments or their opinions about what they thought, what the correlations, these cause and effect, causal connections between the Tower Hamlets Council's regime of negligence in terms of building safety and the deaths that could be avoidable, should have been avoidable. And I have not come across any instance of a single councillor making any statement about that, about those deaths and their implications. The only elected person from Poplar and Limehouse who has reportedly spoken about this collapse has actually contradicted herself. Afsana Begum issued a statement as reported by the Communist Party Morning Star's website, but her main emphasis was that from now on, or on this matter, she was determined to go on working with the trade unions. Now that shows a multi-layered ignorance and lack of engagement with actually what is happening and what the duties are and who is responsible. It was nothing to do with the trade unions, because in Tower Hamlets Council's case, the trade unions are not covered in glory on their records. So we shall update on that, and we shall also comment on the current positive publicity that the trade unions collectively are enjoying in relation to the current Tower Hamlets Mayor John Biggs proposing to sack thousands of current employees and expose them to less secure and less good terms and conditions. And Afsana Begum has failed to do her duty and her job and to hold the council to account. I don't know why she has failed that. If she has been guided or misguided in issuing that kind of irresponsible and incomplete, ridiculous, irrelevant statement, that we shall find out. It will come out. Which takes us again to Tower Hamlets Council's failures and the report that the Rotten Boroughs page, this issue, it is page 21, contains about Shamima Begum. Now that is the piece which is beyond belief, but it's actually the first few paragraphs of Beyond Belief is about Mark Edmonds. Mark Edmonds is a former employee of Tower Hamlets Council who was in effect dismissed or sacked, according to him, because he raised alarms and he made complaints and he made allegations and he compiled reports about corruption taking place in the Tower Hamlets Council's youth disservice. I call it disservice because of the evidence. It is called formally youth service, but it is a disservice. And in future bulletins, we shall give evidence as to why the Tower Hamlets Council has most of its departments or sections officially called service, which are actually dishing out disservice, including the youth service disservice. And the result is to be seen and found in the streets, where many misled, misadvised, and misserved young people are loitering with intent to do damage to their social responsibilities by harassing neighbors or accosting passers-by or doing drug dealings or obstructing people's access to their homes in the staircases, or they're spitting en masse. There is such a high incidence of spitting by young people in Tower Hamlets that it has to be made the subject of an extensive series of reports. And we shall come to that in due course later, but this is just another exclusive revelation. The spitting image is very different in the case of Tower Hamlets. It is not funny at all. So we shall end this edition of the